Hey everyone, this is Ben back with you in the model shop. In this week's episode, I'm going to go ahead and cover the installation of the main deck, the wooden deck, and also a replacement of all the little parts that I had to cut off in order to make our wooden deck fit and work. And yeah, I think we wrap up some of the painting. And I don't know if I showed, I got the propellers on, and also whipped up a little base to set the ship on. This is just kind of a quick update here. I wanted to get something up because I'm going to be hitting the road here tomorrow, and it'll probably be a couple more weeks before I even have a chance to work on this. So I want to get something out to everyone now to see what the progress is on this Bismarck. So far, I'm really happy. Thanks for the folks online who provided some additional information, feedback, and help on just what some of these pieces are called and info on the kit and everything. So far this build's going really well. I'm really pleased with how this thing's turning out. So without further ado, let's get into the build. Moving along with our deck situation here, I actually started with the cutting out the bow first to make everything work. The problem is right here, this is designed to lay over the top of the stern piece, so I actually need to work on that first. But what I decided to do is, as you can see here, we'll use this piece. The outlines for all of the trumpeter parts are here, and they're not the same as on the Italeri as on this kit. And I think the reason for that is just copyright. You know, you can't have the exact same thing, otherwise you've copied another company, even though we're modeling the exact same thing. But these make good reference points for detail that is really thin and basically I could just make copies of. So I went ahead and made Xeroxes of these pieces of wood, and with the exception of, like, you know, big pieces like that, I've cut everything else off. Now there were a bunch of reels, you know, the hold hoses and things. Those I sliced off and I saved. We'll have to smooth those out and we'll just reapply them later when we're done. So cut them off, put them in a plastic bag, just use a sharp X-Acto blade, and everything will be cleaned off. Same thing like here at the bow. I think actually that detail is going to have to go, but these two will work. The anchor parts, those are going to stay. Obviously the turret stays, and then we'll start fitting everything together. So that was the first step, is to clean everything up. The bow I already cut out. It's difficult because this has the self-adhesive useless stickiness on the back, so I need to retain the plastic until I'm going to be ready to apply it. So I just have to use a sharp X-Acto blade and cut everything out. And so the next thing I got to do is cut out the back, the stern, because it needs to get installed first. So we have to make all that happen, and we'll start fitting this together. Alright, so the deck, two-part deck, is glued on. It's painted up to be the same RFC gray as the sides, because it might be a little bit transparent, and these features are going to stick up through the top, so we want them to match. After this dries, we'll start playing with the wooden deck. I had to make a bunch of decisions about how best to go about doing this, and after the wooden deck was shaped up as close as possible, it's going to need some adjustment up on the bow still. It seemed like attaching this was the best thing to do. I did add that piece of styrene there to support this area. It just had a funny bow to it that I was having difficulty getting to be flat and level like it was supposed to. So let's let this dry up, and then we will tackle attaching the deck. Alright, so we have our first section of wooden deck installed. This is pressed on. I went ahead and used Gorilla Wood Glue just like I did on the Arizona build, and this stuff has a adhesive on the back of it. You can see kind of the plasticky stuff You gotta peel that off, and then you have a micro thin piece of wood. Now, basically what I'm going to do is, since I got this on successfully, I'm going to put this piece on. And you may have noticed that from previous videos that I'm missing some sections, and that's because the way the wood ended up working, I had to cut this so that I could make it fit right here and that piece there. You are going to have a little seam there, but there's a piece of photo etch that goes there. So what I'm going to do now is show you on camera how I apply this piece. And all of these little details may pop out. I'm trying to keep them in, but if they pop out, it's okay. And I'll just show you all this. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and record all this. I'll put this on fast forward. I'm going to put a little bit of glue on. I'll apply it with a brush, and then I'll show you the application, and hopefully I don't mess up too bad. So yeah, here we go. So let's zoom in here. That worked out mostly the way that I wanted. So we had some trouble up here in the bow. Get to the focus. A couple of these pieces came off. I'm not sure what is supposed to be happening up here exactly with the anchor chain area, but I can pull these parts off if I need to. Back here, sorry about the wiggliness here, everyone. We'll move this so you can see. These pieces came off. That's okay. I'm going to put pieces of styrene in there to fill that in anyway. And this area worked out fine. The only thing I screwed up here is I previously had drawn around with a pencil on the back where I was going to glue and not glue. So anyway, that is it. And it's stuck down. It really wasn't hard. It's got its self-adhesive, and then it's got the wood glue. So the next thing I have to do, besides finishing this whole thing up, let's see if we can zoom in. So there is an excess of wood here that we're going to have to trim away, and then along the edge of the bow here and here, it swings out a little wide, so we're going to have to trim that off, which is part of the reason why these pieces didn't fit so well. So let's get this all installed and trimmed up, and that'll be, that'll have our main deck down. Then we can press on from here. Okie doke, so the deck is now freshly installed. I haven't trimmed anything up yet, but it looks very nice. It laid down super flat. I'm very pleased. So couple of things. So we have like these little squares along the edges here. As you can see, a couple of them came off, and not a big deal. But I actually need to replace them. The ones that didn't come off I need to leave, and the ones that did I need to fill them in with some wood or paint with light colored paint. I'm going to try and go with the wood deck. The edges haven't been trimmed yet. As you can see, the gap ended up a little larger on this side than here. This one I had trouble with. Let's see if you can make it out. Actually, when I was trimming this, my knife slipped and I sliced the... Well, somewhere in here I sliced this, like straight across. I think you can make it out like right there. So to very carefully put back together. Let me push that down a little bit. Maybe there's a little bit of raised edge. Might have to fix that. But in general, the whole thing turned out really nice, and I mean, it's not meant for this kit, right? I mean, it doesn't fit this kit. And I made it fit and it works nicely. So, the next thing I did is grab the next layer. There's 2 tabs here and 2 little holes, and you can just drop it in there, get an idea of how everything's going to fit. And now, you know, things are really starting to come together. The wood deck looks very nice. It sits right on top. There's no clearance issues. You got a couple of spots like right in there, right where the wood didn't cover, or it doesn't line up perfectly. And then here in the back, see what I was talking about with the squares being slightly off. So, and that's not, you know, earth-shattering or the end of the world or anything, but we want to try and fill that all in. So that worked out well. So now it's time to start working on all the fiddly things. I'm gonna fill all that stuff back in that's missing, and I need to trim stuff up here, and I'm gonna do a little research. I feel like some of this should be removed. This wood for the deck chain that it went around, I feel like it was on plate and not on this wood deck, because that would just beat the heck out of it, the chain running along that deck. So okay, so that was a successful deck installation. It turned out nice. The next thing is, like I said, let's work on some of those details. So let's press on, see if we can't wrap it all up here. So some initial deck progress here. What are they called? The points, tips? I don't know. Those little brass fittings that you see right there. I drilled out all the little holes. Remember, I had cut all these off to make the deck fit, so then I had to go ahead and replace all of them. This is .016 brass wire. Drilled some holes, dropped them in, glued them up, cut them off, and then filed them down, and I think they look pretty nice. Also, you can see some random strips here and here of filler pieces of wood. These filled in little gaps and stretches so that when I place the next level on, it matches. I even filled in here and here. So anyway, that works out well. The other thing that we accomplished is I whipped up a little base again. This is a piece of reclaimed lumber. I think it's ash. They cut it down in my neighborhood about 2.5 years ago. I grabbed the round, I milled it up. I was rough sawing in my garage for the last couple of years, so it's all dried out, and I just milled it up this afternoon. As you can see, there's little wormholes in it, and I actually really like that. It gives it a lot of extra character. We set our ship up on here, so I'll zoom out. There's plenty of room. It looks good. I'll figure something out to lift it up, but I feel like there's a lot going on. I just left it square corners. We're going to do like I did on the build with the Arizona, where I build the glass, we'll say, is going to drop on here, and so it'll sit on this ledge and it'll be locked in. Alright, yeah, let's see if I could get some of the plastic parts up here that we are missing replaced, and then I'll get back to you. Alright, ladies and gents, let's wrap up this week. So I've got some protective tape on the bottom of the hull here just to stop it from getting scratched up till I get it mounted, but here are some styrene pieces and some brass reapplied to the deck. I used some pictures of my Tirpitz model, my Tirpitz ship in World Warships to see what some of these shapes looked like. Remember, in World Warships, these guys really researched these ships to make them as accurate as possible. So I feel like they're a pretty good reference. I looked at the photo etch pictures from the original Trumpeter deck for this to make sure that things kind of went the way they were supposed to. And then I Googled some photos online, and we're off to a good start. We've got some work to do up here in the bow. whoops, sorry about that phone call. Work to do up here in the bow. I removed that piece of wood based on what I saw on my World of Warships picture, because there's an anchor chain that goes here. There is an anchor, and there's a hole for one right there that we'll be installing. And so I'm going to have to put some other parts up here, but this is enough to get the ball rolling. I've checked out the anchor chain. There's plenty to run both up here and include a little section right here. You've got an aft anchor, and I'll have to put a hole or something down in here, and then I built this little doghouse for it to feed into to go back under the deck. So anyway, this stuff isn't painted yet. I'll hit it very carefully with a brush. I'm not too worried about messing up the deck. You just got to go slow and be careful. And then if we take this piece, there we go. Alright, so you can see here, I had to trim that one on the right just a little bit, but here's all of our little sections. Some of the filler pieces of wood, and this goes all the way up to the bow. These are little vents and trunks that are opened up in the real ship. Well, that could open up. There's little hatches that go in there that give you some ventilation into the number 2 turret here. I'll get the names. They all have names. They're not 1, 2, 3, and 4. Anyway, that's it. We've got, like I said, our wooden display case roughed out. I think it's gonna be alright. And like I said, I like the little wood and everything, holes in the wood from the little worms. I think it adds some character. So anyway, that's our update for this week, and thank you all very much for watching so far, and we'll get back to you when we have more.